If I can have your attention here in the Media Center, we are joined by tonight's second and third place finishers for the 60th annual Coke Zero Sugar 400. We have Martin Truex Jr., driver of the number 78 Bass Pro Shops 5-Hour Energy Toyota for Furniture Row Racing. And we also have third place finisher A.J. Allmedinger, driver of the number 47 Kroger ClickList Chevrolet for JTG Doherty Racing. We're going to open the floor right up for questions. We'll start with Hill and work our way around.
Yeah, over here. Hill Overton, WNDB Radio. This is for you, AJ. You got third tonight, your best finish, I believe, this year. Is it surprising you got it here in this race?
No, I mean, we've, for whatever reason, we run well here. My guys, they, we really work hard on setup and trying to get at least a good handling race car, especially in the 4th of July race. And, at Daytona, the last, I think, 4 races, I've had a shot to win the race. This tonight was strange. Trying to ride at the back early on and still got wrecked and had a lot of damage on the left rear of the race car. So my guys did a good job to fix it good enough. And, heck, I probably missed another 7 wrecks after that. It was just kind of chaos out there. So, it was a little bit of survival. And there at the end, it was just trying to make the right moves. With the damage on the left side of the race car, put a lot of drag in it. So I didn't really know if we had a great shot to win it. I knew my only shot was going to be off of turn 4 and try to make the right move. And, going down into 3, Martin was battling with Erik there and made a move and tried to push Martin and obviously get as much as I could. And, we salvaged a great result out of it. We had 2 cars in the top 5 out of our race team. So, it's just a solid night. It's one of these nights where you just got to survive. It's not pretty. It's, I think that was a lot of crazy racing, but we survived.
We'll go next to Bob and then upstairs to the press box.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. Martin, you were obviously teammates with Erik last year. What do you think about him finally getting that first win? Did you think it would come earlier? And what were you thinking as well as on the last lap, considering you probably know him as well as anybody out there?
Yeah, definitely happy to see those guys get their first win. It's I can remember what my first win felt like. It's pretty damn amazing. So for them to get it here at a big race, it was really cool to see. And really, obviously wanted to beat him, but happy for him. If you're gonna, run second to somebody, that's kind of the story I guess you'd want to see out of it. So, all in all, I think for us it was a good night and did all the things we needed to do. I'm just I got to work on my mirror driving skills. I'm not real good at it. I never have been, and just happy to get through here alive and finish. I joked all week that I hadn't finished this race in 8 or 10 years, and that's not. It's kind of funny, but it's not really. It's true and sad. So to finally get to the end of one of these races and then have a shot at it was cool. I wish I could have done a better job for my team because our car was really fast and I felt like it was for sure the best car we've had on the plate tracks probably the last 2 years. And the good news is it's still one piece, so I feel good about that. But definitely congrats to Erik and his team. They've been fighting hard to get to where they're at, and always good to see a first-time winner. Maybe ISC and those guys can be a little bit happier about things.
We'll go upstairs to the press box, and then we'll come back downstairs to Nate.
Dang, got hot in here. Hey, Greg Engel Auto Week, I'm the disembodied voice up here in the ceiling. For Martin, sorry.
Is that thunder?
Yeah, no, it's...
That's fireworks, man. 4th of July.
It's the ISC guys.
It's the ISC running around.
Martin, you knew it was Erik up in front of you coming on that last lap. No matter who it was, would you have worked harder if it was somebody else to get the win? Or
oh hell no.
Okay,
I didn't give him anything. He earned it straight up. So the race really where it changed was we got a good start. 95 was a good pusher. He got me out front. We got separated a bit. I broke away from him a little too much, and just as I broke away, him and the 20 jumped back in line behind him and give him a big shove, and he got a run on me. And like I said earlier, I just did a terrible job of blocking. He got to my rear corner. We got side by side, and then the race was on. Those guys ganged up behind and came with a big run to the outside of the 95, and it just got a little crazy from there. So, he was just in the right spot, got the right run, timed it, got past me, and then there was nothing I could do. The guys behind me were racing hard, so I was just kind of sitting there with no momentum the last lap, and he drove on off to the sunset for the win.
We'll go next to Nate, then to Jerry, then to Matt.
Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. For both you guys could both address it. Both in February and this race, it seems like all the wrecks, the big multi-car wrecks, are happening at the front. I mean, usually they happen in the middle of the pack. Is it blocking? Is it just the urgency of needing to be up front? Because if you get shuffled back, you can't get back up there. Any reason for that?
Yes, and yes. Go ahead.
I agree. No, I mean, I think it's that some of the wrecks happen at the end of the stages. At the 500 especially, and those stage points. Especially the start of the year, I think everybody's aggressive on them, trying to get more stage points and get your season kicked off right. Hell, I don't know what happened tonight. I mean, I was trying to ride at the back, and it just seemed like that the blocking. I mean, it seems aggressive. I mean, it is very aggressive, and the urgency, whether it's to stay up front, even if there's a lot of time left to get back to the front, I'm not really sure why, but to me, that's what's causing it.
I think it's a desperation kind of race. There's a lot of guys that out there that need a win, want to win, feel like it's their best shot, and they're willing to take big risk, big gambles. I mean, we look at the guys that were involved in the wrecks tonight and involved in, kind of instigating them. So they're all guys that were, not willing to lift. We've seen a couple guys in wreck a few times, cause a few wrecks. So, there's a lot on the line. It's a big deal to win at this level, at this racetrack, and I think a lot of guys just wing it and go for broke.
Go next to Jerry and then to Matt.
Jerry Jordan, KickinTires.net, Performance Racing Network. Martin, you brought it up with the young driver issue. Seriously, the big three, you're the only one of the big three that survived tonight. But with Erik getting this win, does that give the younger NASCAR generation some momentum?
Yeah, for this week. I mean,
one of those three are gonna win next week, so I don't know. I mean,
I think it's for me personally, I just think it's cool for Erik. I like him. He's a good kid. He's worked hard. And I don't know the repercussions of him winning here, what they're going to be, but for me, I think it's a good story. So happy for him, happy for his family and his fans. He's put a lot of effort in to get here, and he's in a good position, and he's got a lot of pressure on him. So to finally get that first one out of the way, I think it'll help him a bunch, and we'll see where he takes it from here.
Good. Go to Chris.
Yeah, Chris Boyle, Daytona Beach News Journal. Martin, just wanted to get your thoughts on kind of your strategy throughout this thing, because you kind of drifted back at different times of the race and then moved up to the front. Was it just survival at that point?
It was a complete survival. The first part of the race, I wanted to see what our car would do, kind of how it handled. So we ran probably 25 laps up there, 20 laps up there in the middle of the pack, and realized we weren't going anywhere. I kind of knew what I needed to do to my car to make it better, and I just bailed out, and from there rode around and took it easy and watched them all crash, and then said, coming to stage 2, it's like we were up to like 10th, and we were in the back. The crash happened. We didn't pit. We were like 10th, and I was like, damn, a lot of cars were in that one. So even then, I made up my mind to not try to go racing stage 2, not try to worry about stage points, just chill out, and they wrecked again. So it was a good decision.
Gentlemen, thanks for taking the time to join us. Good luck in Kentucky. If I can have your attention here in the media center, we will go ahead and start with our race-winning team in tonight's 60th annual Coke Zero Sugar 400. We're joined right now by crew chief Chris Gayle, the number 20, buyatoyota.com Toyota for Joe Gibbs Racing. We'll open the floor up for questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll get a wireless microphone to you. Questions for crew chief Chris Gayle? Start here with Kelly, and we'll go to Bob.
KellyCrandallRacer.com. Chris, Erik said last year he really felt like you guys could get the win at the 77. He was kind of bummed that you didn't. How have you seen him kind of handle that over the last year, and how has he just matured as a driver?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was a real big letdown leaving Bristol last year, Fall Bristol. I mean, that's the one where we led the most laps. thought we had a shot to win it, and then Kyle nipped us there at the end. That was the one that we thought, okay, this one just got away from us. And, he was down for a little bit, but you kind of got to, this racing thing, you got to move on, right? Really quickly. You got to have short-term memory and move on. We talked about it a lot in the off seasons about the things he needs to do to grow and to win races. I mean, it's tough to win races. It is at this level, right? I mean, he's got immense talent, but there are 15 other people, 20 other people with his same story at some point in time in their career, and they have experience on him. So he's just got to move past that. He's done a good job of really focusing on the things he needs to do better. I would tell you the last 3 weeks I've really noticed a change in him. Sonoma was a turning point for us. We went to Sonoma, and we were just awful last year at Sonoma. I mean, it was terrible. He didn't feel like he knew what he needed to do. I didn't feel like I could help him. He went to work. We did some racing school stuff there for Sonoma. We went into that weekend knowing it was going to be tough and we were going to have to battle. And the first 10 laps of that race were pretty tough. I mean, it could have gone either way. Like, I thought we were going to slip back and have a bad weekend. And he kind of dug a little deeper, found something different, stopped kind of complaining, focused more on what he could do better, and we get a 7th-place finish out of that. And then I think that confidence carried over to Chicago. And so I'm really expecting even bigger things from him. You get a little confidence in him. We all know we can do it at this level. It just kind of helps you once you kind of get the first win. The entire team knows that. So I'm looking for big things. I mean, it's cool.
And you mentioned the off season. What were those conversations like?
Just a little bit of kind of where we went wrong last year. Last year was odd, right? Because you had a lot of winners behind us in points. Like, at one point during last year, we thought we were going to points our way into it, and we may not have to win a race. And then you have so many winners, that are behind you in points, kind of sneak in to where we kind of got clipped and didn't have a shot to get in that way. So some of it was about just maximizing our finishes. When we've got a 10th place car, let's bring that thing home 10th place. Don't try to do more than's necessary and wind up bringing home 25th because we've tried to do more than what the car could do. And I think he's done a great job at that. Some of that was on me too, though. There were 4 races last year where we didn't qualify. Well, that's me being too aggressive. So I got to take some of my same advice that I give him about, just doing what we can do and getting out there and qualifying, and not necessarily pushing so hard that I don't get to qualify and put him behind, and then he feels like he needs to work hard to overcome that mistake.
Okay, we'll go next to Bob, and then we'll go to Matt.
Bob Pockris, ESPN, for Joe, and then if Chris wants to jump in as well. Do you feel Erik was feeling a lot of pressure? You don't replace Matt Kenseth and not win.
I think drivers are like quarterbacks. I say if you don't like pressure, you need to get out of your profession because it just comes with it. And I think there's always pressure, particularly in this sport, because you're the guy with the wheel. It's a huge deal. We know in our sport right now there's a huge amount of young talent, which is really great, I think, for our fans. We got a lot of good, very, very good young drivers coming up. And so I know that Erik kind of measures himself against those other guys. And went through last year, him and Chris, and this year, coming into this year, I think Chris is probably right. I think that's our 3rd straight top 10 for him, and then for him to win tonight. I think he kept his poise, did a very good job of staying calm. And the other thing that I think about tonight, I think back to the young drivers for their first win. I remember Bobby Labonte, everybody's crying at Charlotte to get his first win. Tony Stewart, I remember that first win. Dale Jarrett's was the second, but it was Daytona 500. Those are just emotional times, and you really appreciate them because it means so much to him and the family. I talked to Carol, his mom, and obviously with losing his dad, just a huge deal, who was a tremendous supporter for him. It's a great story. I think it's a great night, and it's a huge deal, and we're going to celebrate it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was. We've never had conversations about him following in Matt's shadow and replacing the car. I think he's more a guy of knowing what his capabilities are, knowing what he thinks he should be capable of doing, and measuring him to what he thinks he should be doing, and not necessarily measuring him to the guy before. I think there have been plenty of conversations where we've had, and he's been upset with how he ran, and just thought he was better than that, but nothing that we've ever had comparing to previous drivers or anything.
We'll go to Matt, then to Jerry, then to Hill.
Matt Weaver, Auto Week. I've got a question for both of you guys. First, for Coach. I remember hearing about a conversation that you had with David Wilson and Alan Miller at Homestead right after Erik had won his first truck race at Phoenix, where basically they were trying to pitch you on Erik's long-term success. What do you remember about that conversation, and what did it take for you to be sold on Erik?
I think, first of all, there's quite a few people that have had a huge impact on Erik and his career. If you go all the way back, Kyle Busch has a great eye for talent. I think that's where we first hear about Erik the first time, and I think it was a snowball derby or whatever it was. So you got Kyle, then all of a sudden Toyota has had a huge effort on their part, working with us, David Wilson, Ed Laukas, Bob, everybody there at Toyota has really been, all in on Erik, and it took a lot. There's been a lot of work, hard work, to get Erik, in this position. And so I think he's got a lot of people there that have really made a huge effort. So the first part of the conversation, I talked so much I forgot what it was.
Just what did it take to be able to sell you each of those guys that were part of the table?
I think, what happens with us is our whole team. I know Coy, and when JD was here, and our whole group, the family, we all talk a lot. We always see the young guys coming up. I think Toyota has a big input, and we've got quite a few young guys right now on our board. And you're talking about Xfinity, and you're trying to guess and look at and see where you think the next young talent is coming. And so those are just kind of, everybody talks about it. I don't think anybody can take one, no one person had a lot to do with this. It was everybody, and in particular Toyota, because they're a big part of supporting Erik with us.
And for Chris, you've had an opportunity to work with a lot of the top Toyota and JGR guys. In what ways is Erik similar to each of those guys, to Kyle and Denny? In which ways is he different, and what stands out about Erik?
He's similar to Kyle, being aggressive. He's similar to a young Kyle, being aggressive. I was around when Kyle first came to JGR and Toyota, and so I was a part of a lot of seeing, how aggressive Kyle was, how even he overdrive a little bit at that point. Erik has a lot of those tendencies. But Erik, I think, has a little more patience than Kyle did at that point in his career, He's most similar to Kyle in just about everything. Denny's way different. Except I would say their personalities away from the track, away from the race car, are totally different. Erik's as laid back as you'll be around. But behind the wheel, very aggressive. And for me, just to kind of talk about the first interaction I had with Erik was 2015 when Kyle was hurt, got injured here at Daytona in the beginning of the season. I was a crew chief on the 54 then. Erik got to sub for 7 races for me that year. And I can vividly remember the second Chicago race. He didn't get to practice because he was running trucks somewhere. And we had Drew Herring practice for us. Erik showed up, qualified that car. And we had the car too loose. We had it set up for Drew. It was too loose, so he qualified 11th. And he was bummed about it, down. He got over that really quickly. He drove that car from 11th to the lead and led the rest of the race and won. And that was what solidified it for me. He's like, he can not practice this thing, get here, show up, and run with everybody. So that's kind of where I knew he had the ability to do it. It's just a matter of continued learning and progressing.
Go next to Jerry, then to Hill.
Jerry Jordan, Kicking the Tires, Net and Performance Racing Network. Coach, saw you at the Care Center a couple times tonight. You had 3 guys that ended up there in the night on a high. Talk about that emotional roller coaster that just ended for you.
Yeah, I spent most of my night running back and forth to the hospital. That's not a lot of fun. But thank goodness all of our guys are okay. But it's just a heartbreak when you see that for them and how much everybody puts into it. And then to have wrecks like that. So it was a real downer for us. And then we came back. Erik was down a lap. So nothing had gone our way. And it's a real tribute, I think, to Chris and Erik and Rick, our spotter. Just did a fantastic job tonight. The pit crew, everybody worked hard. We did some repairs to the car. And it's typical in our sport because it's a team sport. And Erik will be the first to tell you that. everybody working extremely hard and did a fantastic job. And I was going to piggyback on Chris. We put him in that car at Kansas when he substituted for Kyle. And we were all looking that first lap. Our crew chief said, he bet he comes off that throttle that first lap because that place is so fast. In that practice, very first lap, he went to the top of the board and didn't come down. I think Erik's fast. He's got, that's one thing about him. I think wherever he goes, he's not afraid to push it.
Go next to Hill.
Hill Overton, WNDB Radio. Coach, I'm over here to your right. Yeah. Good to see you. Congratulations on the win tonight. Now you have 2 of your 4 drivers who've made it to victory lane this year, so that's half of them. Are you the believer in success breeds success, and maybe this will open the door to get Daniel and Denny there? Are they both likely to get a win, in your opinion, from here to the rest of the way this year?
Well, it's just this year it's been extremely hard because we've had really 4 people winning all the races, and so it doesn't leave room for anybody else. But I think tonight was a huge deal, restrictor plate, and Erik was able to get this and fought hard all night. I think certainly Daniel and Denny. I know Denny's in good spot with the points and everything, but we need to, and he knows we need to win races for FedEx. We need to get that done. And I think Daniel's a young guy that has a huge desire to try and get in the playoffs. I know he said 2 weeks ago, I think, to everybody here that he's going to get in one way or the other. So, I think what it does is that to our group, it says we got good stuff. And so I think everybody kind of says, hey, I got the stuff here to get it done. I need to get it done.
Go next to Steve and then to Brendan.
Steve Schweitzer of the Lasco Press. Coach, with the win tonight, do you think that this will actually make Erik a better driver? Got the monkey off his back?
I think the first wins are always huge because Chris, has been a part of this. For any young guy, when you get that first win, it's just a big deal. And there is, as somebody said here, there's a lot of pressure up here. There's only 40 guys getting to drive these things. And you got to earn your way. And when you get a chance, you need to get it done. I think they all know that. So there's a lot of pressure that goes with this. And so I think you make a good point. As soon as you get that first win, at least you say, okay, now I'm ready to go. And really, he started, I'd say, a real upswing for us 3 weeks ago. And I think Chris is right. Road racing, when you have a great finish at a place that you would say is your toughest challenge, I think that really helped. And we've had, he's been in the top 10 since then.
Go next to Brendan.
Hey, Coach. Brendan Marks from the Charlotte Observer. Congratulations, first off. You hinted a little bit at Erik's relationship with his dad, and he said the same when he got out of the car. Just what was their relationship like a little bit? How much of an impact did Dave have on Erik? And, what sort of emotions do you think are going through his head in that regard?
I think it was a real father-son, and we all know what that's like for us that have kids. You hurt so much for them. You want them to do great, and then you're so proud of them. He was always in the background, but he was talking to me. He was talking to everybody. He wanted to know the plan going forward, and he knew how much it meant to Erik. And he really was heavily involved. He had his own, he had a car parts company for Corvettes and what have you, so he loved cars. And I asked him one time if he raced. He said no. I said, Erik just said, I want to do this. And he was so supportive. And it was just a horrible thing. It was just terrible. And so that's a part of Erik, I think, winning tonight. I think obviously it's an emotional thing for him because his dad would have absolutely loved it.
And speaking of Erik, we are now joined by the winning driver of the 60th annual Coke Zero Sugar 400, and that's Erik Jones of the number 20 buyatoyota.com Toyota. We'll have questions for everybody. Hands in the air for those with questions for our race winner. We'll start with Bob and then go to Kelly.
Bob Pockers, ESPN. Eric, it was 2,044 days ago when you won the 2012 Snowball Derby. That's when everybody said you would win a cup race. I had to look that up. I didn't count
Okay,
it.
I was wondering if you had that already memorized. Or
No,
something.
but I'm curious, did you think it would take that long from that point to get to this point? And has it seemed like it has been that long, or has it seemed like a whirlwind?
I would have thought it would have took longer. I mean, when I won the Snowball Derby in 2012, I was 16 years old, and I didn't have any opportunities in NASCAR at that point, so I kind of thought I was going to find something else to do pretty soon. But, I thought at that point I was going to get maybe some, smaller opportunities for other teams, but that kind of changed everything for me. So it really, these last 6 years have flown by. I mean, it doesn't seem like, was it 2,044 days ago? It doesn't seem like that. So it's definitely went by quickly, and I never would have thought 6 years would have went by so quick, but looking back right now over the 6 years and what all has happened and places I've been, things I've done, it's flown by.
Next to Kelly.
KellyCrandallRacer.com. So, Eric, Chris was sitting in here kind of singing your praises of how you've grown since last year, especially putting the disappointment aside of not getting that win you felt you could. And he even mentioned some off-season conversations of things you can do to get better. What has this past year been like, just you growing as a Cup driver?
Well, I think, coming into the year, my work ethic has been quite a bit higher overall. I think I've really put myself to the task and, went on the grind to figure out what it's going to do to take to win these races, and from a lot of different angles, and to see it pay off. And we had a rough stretch there the last month and a half, but these last 2 weeks at Chicago, Sonoma, we had really good runs, and then coming here and kind of capping it off with a win, it sure felt good. So we just need to keep that momentum rolling. But overall from last year, I think a year in the Cup Series, you grow a lot, you learn so much. I never learned as much in any other series in any other year racing as I did last year, and things that I learned last year are things that I'll take with me probably for the rest of my career in NASCAR. So it's definitely been a journey, but Chris has done a good job of helping me out with that. I mean, I'm still only 22 years old, but definitely I would say a slightly calmer 22-year-old than I was 21-year-old. So we're still working to sand the edges a little bit, but we're definitely getting there.
We'll go in the back to Jeff.
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. Eric, at the start-finish line, you let out this crazy inner Eric that I haven't seen before. You must have been on some massive adrenaline high. What was that moment like, and where did that yell out to the crowd come from?
I don't know. I was really excited, I guess, but I really you want to win every race, and I didn't. Today was not a day that I necessarily thought was going to be our day. I just didn't, coming into it, we were going to do everything we could to win the race, but we had to be fairly conservative, and we were laying back and dropping back, and at one point we had to repair quite a bit of damage and went a lap down. And, I didn't give up at that point, but thought, okay, we've really got to do our best to salvage a solid day. But as the race started winding down, we just kind of kept bumping up. We were 15th, and then we were 12th, and then we were 7th, and then we were 4th, and then we were 2nd, and it just kind of kept inching forward. And on the last restart, I was like, well, we've got a legitimate shot at this point. So it was just those days when you don't think you have a shot to win and you do end up winning are the excitement level is just 100 times higher than the days where you have dominated and feel like you should win the race. So that's why that excitement was so high.
Additional questions for our race-winning team? Go next to Matt.
Matt Weaver, Auto Week. For Eric, I just told the story before you came in about a meeting that Dave Wilson and Alan Miller had with the coach to basically try to sell you to them. So I'm curious, at what point were you a part of that conversation, and when did you finally sit down and talk to Coach, and how did you sell yourself to be a part of this program? I've got one more for you.
Oh, wow. So the first time I met Coach was at the banquet in 2013. It was a Truck and Xfinity banquet, and Coach came up to me and my dad at the time. We had both went down there for it. Kyle had won the Owners' Championship in the Truck Series with the 51 truck at the time. And Coach came over and introduced himself and was really excited, and we were excited to meet Coach. And he said, we're going to try to do what it takes to get you in one of our cars. And I was kind of, we were just going along with it. And then we walked away, and my dad's like, well, that was pretty cool. And I was like, yeah, that was pretty cool. So later the next year, we ended up getting a few Xfinity races. And, from there it grew into a full-time season a couple years later. And it was just a really cool progression of things to see kind of how it all happened.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about Tuesday, going back to Slinger and a lot of momentum winning at Daytona. Last time that you were there, you got roughed up by Matt, if I recall, and he's not there to steal one from you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun going back. I'm going from a 2.5 mile to a quarter mile, so a little bit of adjustment when we get up there. But, yeah, it's going to be fun. It's a track I really enjoy going to, and hopefully we can get Slinger Nationals knocked off the bucket list. That would be pretty sweet. Yep.
Go to Bob and then to Jerry.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. Erik, what's it like to replace Matt Kenseth and replace a guy who was a Cup champion? I assume, if you don't win in this spot, it doesn't look like a very good decision by Coach.
Well, you feel the pressure for sure, and coming into the year, taking over and working with almost the same group that was with Matt last year, you feel that, and you want to go out and perform and run really well, and I definitely feel like this race, this win has lifted a lot of weight off my shoulders for sure. And I feel like, Coach has been very committed to me and very supportive of everything that we've done this year and over, the last few years that I've been with Joe Gibbs Racing. So, but you still feel that pressure. You still want to win. And myself as a competitor, regardless of who I'm replacing or where I'm driving, you want to win races, and you want to be a winner. You don't want to be riding around, and it's good to get top 10s and top 5s, but at the end of the day, you want to win races, and you want to be competitive, and you want to be a contender.
Jerry?
Jerry Jordan, Kicking the Tires on Net and Performance Racing Network. A lot of the talk was coming into all this was young drivers winning races, and does that pressure off your shoulders now, I guess, but did that get in your head at all?
Not really. I mean, it's just it's a matter of time. I mean, it's great to get our first win knocked out, and I hope and I'm sure and we're going to have opportunities to win some of these next 9 before the playoffs, and hopefully have a nice little championship run here coming up. But all of these young guys, myself, Chase, Ryan, Daniel, are going to all win races. It just takes time to learn and grow. We're racing guys that are 10, 15-year veterans of the sport, and they're pretty good at it. So it takes time to catch up, but I feel like we've all done a pretty good job, and we're all getting closer every week.
Steve?
Steve Schweitzer, the Let's Go Press. Erik, first off, congratulations on the win. To the team as a whole, will your race strategy change now with the win in the pocket in regard to maybe going for stage wins, try and build some playoff points between now and the end of the year?
Yeah, it's going to change some. There's definitely a lot of races, I would say, over the last month or so. We've really raced for the finish. We haven't really necessarily raced for stage points as much. And, that focus has for sure changed. We have to race for stage points now to try to just build that points buffer for these first couple of rounds of the playoffs. We want to get as much as we can now. That's going to be, kind of the ultimate goal. As far as, racing and risk-taking, that kind of thing, we're trying to win every week before this, but there's going to be opportunities maybe to take a few more chances, but it sure worked out good being conservative tonight, so maybe that's a strategy for going forward. I don't know, but it does give us more opportunities to go for stage points.
Next to Dominic.
Dominic Ottagon with the Racing Experts and ESPN Albuquerque for Erik. So you get that push on the last lap from Chris Buescher. At what point did you know you were going to win the race? And can you just talk about those emotions as you were approaching the line?
Yeah, I kind of thought we were out of it for a minute when the 95 got up in front of us and started racing with a 78. But I saw the 37 getting a big run, and I was thinking, man, I sure hope he sticks with me because he could have just as easily split to the bottom and probably made a run to make it 3 wide on everybody. So when we got clear of the 78, I knew we were in a pretty good spot because he didn't have a lot of help after that. Everybody had strung out a little bit from what I could see from my seat and watching it back. But once we got off turn 4, I felt like it was highly unlikely, unless we had a pretty severe failure, that we were going to get past. So that was pretty exciting at that moment, and pretty cool to come down and close it out.
Sure. And the other question I have for you is, looking forward to next week at Kentucky. You had a top 10, 6th place finish there last year. What is it about that track that suits your driving style?
The Kentucky before the repave was one of my favorite places to go. We ran really well in trucks and Xfinity. I never ran the old surface with the Cup car, but last year getting there, it was just somewhere I was just pretty comfortable. I don't know. It feels like somewhat similar to the old surface, obviously a lot faster and smoother, but there's a lot of things that you do from my seat that are very similar. So we had a really good car there last year. And I hope we can continue to stay on that path. But, really overall, just the momentum from this win is going to carry us a long ways. I'm a pretty big believer in that, and when you get that momentum rolling and everybody's on the same page and rolling in the right direction, that it's going to carry you a long ways. And you look at the 78 and the 4 and the 18, and that's what they've really had going, is that momentum. I mean, they never stop. They keep it rolling every week. And hopefully we can get that ball rolling in our court as well.
We'll finish up in the back with Edgar.
Yeah, Edgar Thompson with the Orlando Sentinel. When you crossed the finish line, the commentators recounted a story about your father selling a Corvette. This might be familiar a lot in this room. I'm not. Do you mind sharing that story?
Yeah, so I was, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13. We were just trying to get into late model racing around that time, whenever it was. And my dad was in the car business, specifically Corvettes at the time, were selling reproduction parts and doing restoration. And he had bought a Corvette of his own when I was maybe 5 or 6 years old. And one day he came home and he had sold the car, and I was like, man, why did you do that? And he's like, well, we got to fund the racing somehow. So, there was a lot of sacrifices taken from my family to get to a point to have an opportunity. That wasn't the only thing that was sold along the way, and things that were chances that were taken financially to get me to this point. But, I was able to buy that car back actually about a year and a half ago, and that was pretty cool. Same car, so that was pretty neat to get that back. I always wanted to give it back to him, but it sure feels good to have it in my hands now. But yeah, that was a neat story. Definitely wish you could have been here to see this one.
I guess, what does all that kind of mean to you, ultimately, just the sacrifices?
Well, that was one of the first things I thought about crossing the finish line. I mean, number one, my mom and my dad. My mom isn't here tonight, so I wish she could have been here to celebrate with us and the sacrifices she's made, not only the last couple of years of supporting my racing and helping me out on that side of things, but my whole life, obviously, raising me up and then being a supporter of my racing from the time I was 7 years old. And then thinking of my dad, just wishing he could be here to see it. I mean, this was step one of the ultimate goal. I mean, the ultimate goal, obviously, Cup championship, and the first step in that is winning a race, and then you win multiple races and hopefully contend for a championship at some point. So it would have sure been special to see his reaction to that last lap and his excitement, because it would have been probably off the charts. I think he would have succeeded me on my excitement crossing the start-finish line.
Well, gentlemen,
I think Erik's dad, I was talking to him about that, and I said, when did you start him in late models? And he goes, we cheated. I started when he was 13. So anyway, let's get that up front. But I think he took a lot of pride in that.
Well, gentlemen, congratulations, and good luck next week in Kentucky.
Thank you.
Take care.
You guys got me soaking wet. Stink.